Hello, this is the first of a recording series of podcasts with very unique people. I'm Santiago Iniguez, president of IE University, and I'm accompanied here for the first podcast of this series with Marco Gam. Marco is one of my distinguished students of the Global Online MBA. He's the founder and the CEO of Conmedia, a company based in Denmark. And he did his Global Online MBA, if I recall well, a couple of years ago. And I still recall, making jokes with Marco on a number of things. First, I recall telling him that when you have a very short name like yours, you have many more chances of being more sociable and more known by other people, which is the contrary to what happens to me. I have a very complex name, Santiago Iniguez. Your name is very easy to recall. No? I wonder whether this has to do with your success as an entrepreneur. But anyway, Marco was a leading student in the class, brilliant, very participative, thinking outside the box and thinking strategically, which is something that captured my attention as professor. But I wanted to ask you something, since you founded your company when you were 20 years old, and then you decided to take an MBA, which is, let's be honest, is not usual. Normally, entrepreneurs are very much focused on their companies, and they leave, training for some other time. So you were very encouraged, and you decided to do the Global Online MBA. Why did you take this decision?
So, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, Santiago. Thank you. Um, for me, I always had two dreams. So, I had first dream was to found my own company and have an influence and be able to do something, influence others, and do something differently. And the other thing was that I wanted to um, kind of be successful also academically. So I thought when first founded the company and we started out, I thought it would be impossible to do both paths. And everybody was also telling me that. Everybody was telling me that it's impossible to run your own company and study at the same time. So I started out by the first couple of years, we just worked at the company. And then me and my two co-founders, we decided actually to go into the university in Denmark and complete our bachelor's degree at the same time. That's what we did.
That's very encouraging,
Yeah.
by the way, because, and I very much encourage our students who become entrepreneurs, and IE is a cradle of entrepreneurs. I very much encourage them, not to abandon their studies. No? So you took the right decision. No?
I agree, and also that's also why I decided to when I saw the opportunity, I thought, okay, I want to go to an elite university as well. That's also one of my dreams. So I decided to when I saw the opportunity that you have the it was possible to do an online version of it, an MBA from IE Business School. I was never really in doubt. So I applied, and then I went through the process. To be honest, they thought in the process that I was a little bit young, also because I only had my bachelor's at the time. A lot of my other students, they had more academic background than I had. But I had, even though I was only 26 when I started the MBA, I had a lot of leadership experience because right now we are more than 30 employees and I have 8 years of leadership experience now. So
And I can tell because your colleagues in class, your fellow students, did actually respect you very much. No, no, it's that's amazing. I was wondering your company, which is called Conmedia, which is not Conmedia, it's Conmedia, and is actually reachable on LinkedIn and on many other platforms. Can you describe, what's the main business? Because you're growing fast. You are not only operating in Denmark, but you are now having customers in Canada and elsewhere. So, what is the core of your business?
So officially, we are a marketing agency. We want to consider ourselves a lot more. We can get on that later. Also, we want to consider ourselves a community. But in the service we do, the way we make our profits, and the way we are able to have a successful company is by having a marketing service specifically for large chains. So usually in large chains, we have a big head office and we have some local stores underneath. For example, the partnership we have in Canada right now, we help 100 local stores do their local social marketing. That's basically what it is. So we create the content, we train the employees in the local stores to capture the right content, and then we help them edit it. It can be videos, images, captions, whatever. And then we have a platform where they upload it, and we take care of the rest. So basically, we are helping to facilitate the dialogue between the head office and the local stores, which is something that we don't really see anyone else doing, not in that scale. So last year we did 120,000 posts on social media.
That's amazing. And you produce lots of videos as well.
Yes, yes. So I think almost 20,000 of those were video content.
It's very interesting, and one of the reasons, why I invited you for this video was the very distinctive culture at your company. I was amazed because you hire young people, very young people, actually, on their first year of studies at university. So you actually revert what happens normally at internships elsewhere. What is normally is that students on their third or fourth year, they attend their internships at companies. What you actually do is actually hire them at your company and encourage them at the same time to follow their studies, but they become, let's say, more mature on the process, no?
Yes, exactly. So we are copying what me and my co-founder did ourselves, right? So I studied 6 years at the university while I was also building the company. And what I experienced there was when I got into the MBA, for example, even though my academic experience were much less than the rest, I could see that by being in an entrepreneurial company and leading an entrepreneurial company gave me so much and learned so much in a lot of fields. I think today most companies and most all over the world we are trying to create specialists in every discipline, right? But I believe in that you need to build and create generalists in order to kind of like connect the dots between the specialists. And that's basically what we do in Conmedia. So when we take people in, it's not just we have people directly from high school actually. So usually the way it works, it's they come directly from high school and they have 1 or 2 what they consider as a gap year, and then we kind of like encourage them to start at the university, have this university pattern, and say to them, okay, it is possible actually to have both academic experience but also work experience, and that combination is just unique, and it's basically a reflection of me and Gustav, my co-founder, the way we did it ourselves, because we did exactly that, right? So
now that's really interesting because it doesn't actually eliminate studying at universities, which is what some people, some entrepreneurs sometimes, encourage youngsters to do, to skip higher education. I realize that there's lots of criticisms, targeted at universities. But the fact is that the experience that you live at universities, meeting with other youngsters, opening your mind, spending time reading and thinking and reflecting is something that you can do actually at that age. And that you skip that, then you may become a very good professional, but you may miss what you were mentioning, those generalist skills, and becoming a global citizen. So studying is not just about preparing yourself for a job, but actually becoming a good global citizen.
Indeed.
But your value proposal is very interesting because you encourage your workers to continue at university, but at the same time they experience, something at a very early stage, which is managing those jobs, learning about how to interact with the external world, with customers. So they mature more quickly without giving up their studies.
We are basically teaching them life skills while they're also learning a lot academically. So I always tell my employees that when you study, it's not about the topic you study itself. It's not about what you read. It's about what the things you read make you reflect about, right? So you learn to think basically, no matter which study it is. So you learn how to think and how to self-reflect is also an important thing. And what you said about before, you mentioned that when people go into the university, they also have this social interactions with other young people, and then they kind of like um, get inspired by each other, right? So when we first started having these thoughts about educating people, both in terms of work responsibilities, but also academically, we thought, okay, if what are our people missing if they chose to be at our place? Okay, they are missing the study life, right? They are missing all this the funny stuff where you have your classmates and you're throwing out parties and having nice events. So that's basically what's the foundation of our culture as well, because we're trying to build that study life in our company as well. So when you come to our office in an evening, you'll find people there playing PlayStation and reading, eating pizza, things like that. And that's on purpose because it's a way of kind of like building that community that we want to build.
So that's fascinating, and I realized some of the values, no, that you instill in your workers, and that one part of your culture includes friendship, passion, and having a very good atmosphere, no, a positive interaction. Maybe if you allow me, no, what I may miss if I was a youngster, no, I'm thinking about whether to join your company or join IE University would be maybe the international atmosphere that you may find here that you don't find at many other places. That's true, no? But what I'm sure is that given that your company is growing, probably in a few years' time, you may be able to provide a very international atmosphere so that your workers actually learn from other cultures and have a full experience at the same time as they are working and studying. No? Can we talk a little bit about the young generations? No? Because you belong yourself to the millennial generation, but you are now hiring even the younger generations, no? And you probably you're able to realize what are the distinctive skills that these youngsters bring to work, to society. I also have my own experiences because we attract here at the university people from undergraduate programs up to executive education. But what is your experience? What would you identify as the key distinctive values of the youngsters?
Yeah, so for me and myself, I'm a millennial, but I'm just on the border to being Gen Z, which is why I have like the understanding of the people who are older than me, but also the people that are younger than me. And what I experience, most of the people we hire is Gen Z. Our average age is 25 in the company. So what I see is the level of adaptability, I would say, is probably the biggest difference because the young people in Gen Z, they grew up with this digital landscape with social media all over the place, which makes it, you have to be very, very aware of that they have, it changes all the time. So everything is changing. Everything is changing for them, and it has been doing that their whole lives. So translating that into the office and the work we do, it's easy to see that they are very good at changing the conditions. So in terms of, for example, change management, I believe it's much easier in Gen Z comparing it to older generations because they're used to those switching things all the time, right? So on social media, for example, then they have to switch their awareness to another platform. Then TikTok comes in, and it's Be Real or Snapchat or whatever, right? So they are very much adaptable. But I would also say I think that this this gap between the generations, there's never been a bigger gap between generations than there is to Gen Z. So, and I think that's the main reason why a lot of companies are struggling with incorporating Gen Z into the workplace. And in the 21st 2030, in like 4 years, 5 years from now, they will represent one third of the workforce, right? Gen Z. So every company needs to adapt into this change because people from older generations might look at Gen Z and think, okay, they are just this younger generation and they just want everything delivered on a silver platter, right? Might be true, but it's the problem of the companies, right?
No,
Yeah.
no, but you're completely right. And there's lots of positive values that the young generations are bringing, their social commitment, the global orientation, as you mentioned, the digital skills. They are native in terms of technology.
Also very purpose driven as well.
Absolutely.
Very
I mean, they
purpose-driven.
they want to reconcile, as you were mentioning as well, their private and professional lives. They are more entrepreneurial, like you. I mean, they want to set up their own company. So there's lots of values that youngsters are bringing to the workplace. I was thinking, about what you were mentioning, the importance of technology and AI in the professional landscape, and the fact that, and also, this gap between generations. And I was wondering how the company's culture can actually help to bridge this gap. You have built a very solid culture at your company. We at IE University are also very oriented to build a very strong culture uh, around a number of values and purpose driven, as you were mentioning, because we truly believe that cements the relations in a company. But what is the secret in order to build up a culture like yours that makes people become more engaged, more interactive, more identified with the company, also bridging, those gaps among generations? Is there any way that you have experienced?
So culture is also always difficult to explain, right? Because it's something that happens for every single interaction there is for years. So it's not, if you come into another company, it's not like you can change the culture from one day to another. But I believe that, first of all, I believe that the culture in a company is a reflection of the leaders in it, right? So it's a reflection of the behavior of the leaders in it. And me and my co-founders and also our key employees has been very, very much aware of that from the very beginning. So getting people in there that you can actually see as ambassadors, not just externally but also internally, I think that's key to building up the right culture. And also, I want to mention the balancing freedom and support, right? So understanding in the academic world, usually when you read in books, you read different leadership styles, right? Then you have 4 or 5 leadership styles, and you have to say, okay, this company or this leader are basically using this leadership style predominantly, at least, right? But for me, it's not it doesn't really don't come down to that you have to choose one leadership style that you do, because for me it's very context based and it's very people based, right? So it's a successful leader needs to be able to change the leadership style based on not only the person they are leading but also the context for that person specifically. Because some people, they might, for example, one of my colleagues, she's very, very talented in one field where she can get all the freedom she wants in the world, right? She can do it herself, but in another field, she might be totally new and where she needs more support. And I think that's a really, really important point, to have this balance between freedom and support and know when and where to push and when and where not to push. And I think it's very context and people based as well.
And I was thinking also, I know that you pay lots of attention to people, your company, and this is something that I also relate very closely to building up a culture, because culture in the end is not something that you just published in manifestos or in credos or in mission statements. The culture is actually embedded in the relations among the persons, the people in an organization.
Yeah.
And I realize that you meet with your co-workers and colleagues and subordinates quite often. In fact, you were referring, to wandering around, to spending time visiting the different offices or the corridors because you have a very open space at your company. And I recall when I did my MBA, there was a case study that was Sam Walton's Walmart, where they described, the style, his management style, Sam Walton, as managing by wandering around,
Mm.
which is actually, visiting the different departments, meeting with people, asking firsthand things, having this very close relationship with the others, no?
Yeah.
And caring about their concerns, caring about their problems, their families, their ambitions, their aspirations, no?
I think really much comes down to emotional intelligence, to be honest, right?
Indeed.
So I think that's probably the most important um, skill you can have as a leader or develop as a leader, because and I think a lot of people are confusing emotional intelligence with being great at speaking to people. But in
Mm.
reality, for me, the biggest, communication. I always thought that communication is probably the most important thing in everything you do,
Mm.
privately and professionally. Right? Communication is a big thing. It's how you communicate with people, because
Mhm.
everything you do in the world is with people. But what I realized last couple of years is that the most important part of communication is comprehension. So it's understanding other people. So
Indeed.
so emotional
So
intelligence.
it's more empathy.
Yes, it's more
Okay.
more empathy driven. So it's you know saying that emotional intelligence is about you being able to great at speaking. For me, it has nothing to do with speaking. It has
Mhm.
something to do with how you make other people feel when they speak with you, and it might be very different. So again, adaptability is a very important factor here, because being able to
Mm.
adapt your communication skill to the person you're speaking with, that's absolutely key, if you ask
I
me.
cannot agree more with you. You know that for many years, I thought that communication was based on conveying messages. This is very typical in academia, where docents and professors, want to convey their lessons. They thought, at least in the past, that the main mission of a professor was actually passing, knowledge, conveying knowledge, no? But the fact is that in order to connect with your students, you need to communicate well. And communication is not just speaking, as you were saying, but it's actually engaging with your audience. And this is something that you need to learn, because it doesn't just consist of preparing, a script and delivering with a nice voice, nice intonation. It's actually engaging and having this empathy with others, no?
Also trying to break down hierarchies, because that's what I also want to do in our company. I basically want, obviously there is this hidden hierarchy.
Yeah.
There will always be people who have been there for many years, for example, typically is in the hidden hierarchy, is higher, has a higher status, right?
Mm.
But I also want us to work as a unit. I want to empower people. I want my colleagues to empower each other as well, and look themselves in the mirror
Mm.
and self-reflect, because I think that's one of the keys also to build a successful company. It's to we grow our company when our people grow.
Mm.
And so my greatest work task is definitely making sure that people grow, and it might be different from one employee to another. Right now, we're basically building a middle management field,
Mhm.
and I'm investing a lot of time in trying to educate our middle managers, or in how can we continue to have this environment where we empower people, because
Mm.
that's what we do. Right? We take people in young, some of them are 20 years old, and then we build them up, not just professionally but also personally, and we're basically teaching them life skills as well.
So you spend lots of time actually assessing people. I mean, doing the job of a talent manager or the former human resources manager. No? Because in the end, if people is the most important asset at a company, it makes sense that the CEO devotes lots of time thinking about people, thinking about their development, their contribution to the company. I was wondering, do you think that in order to fulfill that mission, that job, do you need to have more a solid basis on psychology? I realize that you read a lot, probably, and you have attended this MBA program here. You probably applied many lessons learned, and you keep reading and keeping very much updated about many different things. But in addition to practicing that empathy, no, and meeting with other people, what is also needed in order to fulfill, a very good role as a CEO, as a people manager?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think emotional intelligence is the most important skill. And in emotional intelligence, I think psychology is very important. So in my free time, I read a lot of books around personal psychology, but also organizational psychology. And but I would say I actually considered doing more academically degree on psychology because I think that it's so important to understand people. And I think in terms of AI and technology as well, that in the future it will be even more important because a lot of the work tasks that before were not people related, they are just getting replaced. So we will see a lot more a bigger need for people who understand people.
Hmm.
So I think that in terms of building a foundation around psychology is great. Actually, we do something in the company as well where we kind of like trying to nudge people to understand the behaviors of others, right? Because when you get people in very young, they don't really. For myself, when I was 20 years old, I thought I knew everything, but now I know I didn't know anything at that time.
That's the Socrates maxim. You
Yes,
probably recall.
it is.
um,
It is
he was an
exactly
old
that.
guy, this philosopher, and he told to himself, "No, I
Yeah. So
know that I
the
know
more you
nothing."
learn, the more you see, right? That's the thing for me. That's also why I believe, and I remember you actually told us that in the course in strategy that never stop learning, and I really believe in that because it's like the more you learn, the more you see.
Hmm.
The more you read, the more you understand, the more you know that you don't understand everything. That's basically how I see it now. Um, that's why I'm curious if I ever stop learning and reading because I think it's the way of starting this
Don't do it.
self-reflection.
Don't do it because many people, as they grow older, they feel that they know everything. But the fact is that if you are humble and if you realize about how things change, you need to keep updated, and you need to nurture your knowledge, and you need to polish your managerial skills. No, but I was curious to know. I really liked your sentence: "People who understand other people," because we live in the age of AI, and technology now permeates all processes of corporations. And I was wondering, how much do you use AI for dealing with other people in particular? I mean, I realize that your company and yourself, you're very much engaged in social networks, which is probably the channel for relations today. No? But how much do you use AI at your work?
So I would say not enough yet, because there is a lot of opportunities, and I also think regarding AI, this is another conversation. But I think regarding AI, it's really important to see it as an opportunity and not fearing it, because I see a lot of companies who fears it, and that's that's not very clever because the future is in AI. We just know that now by now, right? But what we do is we use AI to help specifically do the captions for our social media posts. So we have human eyes to go over it afterwards, but we have like AI to come up with basically helping us
Mm,
making our work easier. For example, going for translation purposes. Now we have this
indeed.
client in Canada, and before ChatGPT and other AI services, we realized that we have this barrier in terms of language, right? place. It will be difficult for us to uh, have something here in Spain because it would mean, okay, we'll have to hire people either in Spain or people in Denmark who speak Spanish, and not just speaking Spanish, also being very good at speaking Spanish and grammatically correct Spanish as well. So having AI there in those matters is just, it opens up the world for us basically, because we now have like this translator that are very good. We tested it in several languages and it's actually quite good. So it makes it a lot easier for us. It does.
You pay lots of attention to social interaction, no?
Yeah.
Because you believe that engaging with other people is vital in order to build up a culture at your company and to actually build up excellence in others. And I was wondering, how much time do you spend socializing? I recall, no, there was a paper written by Henry Mintzberg, the thoughtful leader that I studied when I did my MBA, management, folklore, or fact. No? And he explained that most of the time of managers at the office is spent at meetings because you need to deal with each other. You need to instill in others, the right skills. You need to convey messages. You need to share the mission. You need to set objectives.
Mm.
So you spend most of your time, I guess, with other people socializing.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, have. It's not like. It's also important that it's not going to be like a fake relationship, right? So it doesn't have to be like, now I'm doing this because I have to, but also because I want to. So it starts already in the recruitment phase. Also hiring people that you genuinely like to be around. That's the main thing when we recruit. A lot of companies, they are looking at the CVs and the experiences, saying, okay, these people they are having the skills we need. Then we look at who is um, among those CVs. We look at, okay, which one of those people will be the best fit in our organization, right? We're doing it totally opposite. So we're looking at every application we have, saying, okay, these people are probably the ones that are fitting the best into our organization. And then we're looking at the skills afterwards. So, and I think that's a really important thing. That's also why we always encourage our people who are applying for a job in our company to send videos, because videos is much more personal.
Oh.
Applications are like, I've received hundreds of applications and they are 85% the same. People are writing the same things because they write they don't write something about themselves. They write what they believe we want to hear. Right? And that's impossible to hide in a video.
That's really interesting. So, would you suggest, in order to send a very personal message, to record a video rather than, because formerly it was a handwritten note?
Yeah.
That was the more personal way to address someone.
Yeah.
But today is actually recording a video, even when you use your mobile phone, your cell phone.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, the more personal, the better, right? So I don't want a stature of a person that is someone they're trying to be someone they are not, right? So I would rather have like a video them doing something differently, maybe someone who like to run out there running while they are talking or whatever, because it says a lot more about the person than a piece of paper, right? So that's how we believe and think that's how you stand out from the crowd when we receive applications. And regarding applications, most of them we are getting is like we have this almost a waiting list for people to get into our company. So we don't really have the traditional job seeking process that a lot of companies have.
Amazing. No, thanks very much for that piece of advice. I could talk with you for hours, but probably we need to wrap up and finish our conversation. Let me ask you something which has to do with how companies go from being good, to great, to excel. And I recall that when I did my MBA many years ago, The companies that we studied, the case studies were focused on companies that are not the leaders anymore. Some of them have actually disappeared. So this tells a lot because companies can grow old, but normally in this world, which is changing so fast, where technologies change with disruption, with breakthrough changes, the fact is that very few of the leaders of yesterday remain at the top today. So, what in your opinion, can actually make Conmedia, your company, become, a top company and then stay and be longevous, no? Being, a stable, sustainable company.
So I believe that our competitive advantage is our culture. So it's definitely trying to have the culture we have today and continue having it even though we're growing. And that's going to be very, very difficult.
But then the challenge is actually how you convey this culture to your successor.
Yeah.
And which happens very rarely, no? Because I can think of very few institutions, maybe universities, that are centennial, that have a very solid, institutional culture, but they change as well. Maybe some religious institutions as well, but companies, where things change also very often. But anyway, I agree with you that culture is probably, if you build up a very solid culture based on values, but mostly, on what sorts of people you want to attract and to retain. No?
So it's really much about as I told you before, the recruitment phase. So which people are we getting in? And it doesn't have to be the same type of people. I always consider like our organization as a circle, right? So we have a circle with every person in our organization is in this circle. And people are in these years are talking so much about diversity, right? And diversity in terms of gender, age, interests, and everything else. But I will say that for me, it's important to also to state that diversity is nothing without inclusion, because you cannot. I cannot just hire. Let's take age as one of thousands of variables, but age is quite easy to understand.
A very challenging one.
Very challenging one, right? So even given that every one of the employees in my company is between 20 and 33 years old, then I would not be able to hire someone who is 60, for example, or 50, because I could do it, but in the long run, it would be very difficult for me to motivate that person.
So you don't count on hiring someone like me, for example?
Maybe, maybe. But my point is that if you have this circle, you don't necessarily need to recruit people that are in the middle of that circle.
Right.
But you need to recruit people that are on the border of that circle in order for the circle to be even bigger. So when you do that,
that's a very good analogy to understand inclusion.
Yes, because if you do it like that, then you have for example, if I wanted to hire someone that's 40 years old, for example, right now our oldest person is 33. Then I would think, okay, if I need to hire this person, I need someone who is 36, for example, because then you have some people connecting the dots, connecting it to the rest of their organization. And as I told you, I know that age it's not really, it's just the most easy measure to explain the point. But there is a lot more to it. It's much more in interests and everything like that. Because basically it could be a woman who is 50 if she is having the same interests and can be included into the culture. Because another important point is that the culture is the sum of everyone who's in the company. So everybody is basically representing the culture. If you have a strong culture, people who come in as new ones and in the company, they'd be a part of the culture, right? But if you have a weak culture,
indeed, then it doesn't actually work.
Exactly.
I mean, an inclusion doesn't make sense.
Marco, it has been a pleasure. I look forward to continuing our conversation. Thanks very much for your time, your ideas, and congratulations for your successes. The best of wishes.
Thank you.
For Conmedia and for yourself. And that's fair.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.